In 2016, a police officer's wife was shot in the head with his gun. So she survived, thank God. But the mystery is far from over, and it's now the subject of a new podcast called The Officer's Wife. We have your first look in DBL's True Crime Chronicles.
Matthew and Jessica Boynton were high school sweethearts and parents of 2 young children. Matthew worked as an officer for Georgia's Griffin Police Department. It's April 2016.
Are you on EMS? Mm-hmm. Can you please dispatch a unit out to my location?
Matthew is off duty and away from home. He calls dispatch claiming his wife is home alone and suicidal. Body cam video captures the moment officers arrive on scene. The children are inside, but no sign of Jessica. Behind a locked closet door, they find her, bleeding from the head.
Stay out, Matt. Get him downstairs. Get him downstairs.
They discover Matt's police-issued .40 caliber Glock underneath his wife's body. Police pronounce Jessica dead, but they're wrong.
They were calling me the miracle child.
Why is that?
Because what I went through, not a lot of people survived through it.
Jessica was in a medically induced coma for nearly 3 weeks.
What are they telling you happened to you?
They're saying it was self-inflicted.
That it was an attempted suicide?
Yes.
Do you believe that?
No, I do not.
Police find 2 bullet holes, but only 1 bullet.
They're saying I had to have done it like this, down, but yet the bullet goes through the ceiling and the roof and out the wall.
Doctors who treated Jessica note both of her hands were pristine and unmarked. So who fired the bullets? Phone records reveal a text message was sent from Jessica's phone to Matthew's saying, "I can't do this anymore. This is not the first time I have had suicidal thoughts. I love you and the boys."
There was no lock on my phone.
Because of that suicide text and Jessica's DNA on the gun, Matthew is cleared and returns to work. Months later, Matthew is arrested, but not for the shooting.
Whose bag is that?
Jessica's.
And the contents in the bag?
And it's got all her stuff in it.
Jessica had filed a formal complaint after Matthew took her belongings while she was in a coma.
Man, you put me in a situation where I don't have any other choice.
Matthew is fired and arrested on 2 felony charges. Years later, Jessica continues to fight for answers and custody of her kids.
Getting to see them every day and watching them grow more and more into the little boys and men that they're going to be someday.
And you don't get to see that?
No.
Earlier, Tori, Al, and Lindsay spoke with the investigative reporter who spent 7 years unwrapping this case.
We're joined by Chief Investigator Brendan Keefe from WXIA in Atlanta. Thank you so much for joining us. Brendan, evidence in this case is messy. So Jessica believes her husband shot her. He says she was suicidal. In 4 years of covering this, what's the piece of evidence that speaks to you about what really happened that night?
The most disturbing thing to me, Tori, is that locked closet.
Right.
It was locked from the inside. Who would actually put a lock on a closet that could only be opened and unlocked from the inside? It was one of those bathroom-style locks. That still perplexes me. I don't know what happened in that closet, and because she can't remember, Jessica doesn't know either.
Now, you spoke with Jessica, and because of her injury, her head injury, she said she can't remember the events leading up to the shooting, but she's adamant that she didn't do it. What else did she tell you that you find interesting?
The last thing Jessica remembers is filling out a journal in that closet with her husband's gun in the gun belt behind her where he normally kept it. She's in the closet filling out the journal. What is she writing? What she wants in the divorce, custody and money arrangements. That's the last thing she remembers. Statistically, the most dangerous day in a woman's life is the day she's leaving. Wow. And in this case, that's the last thing she remembers. Then she wakes up from a medically induced coma in the hospital with no memory of what happened in between.
And Brendan, this all happened in 2016, so the case is now closed, and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation refuses to reopen it. So why do you think that is, and could this be a case then for the FBI?
Look, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation is one of the best investigative agencies in the country. It's literally world-renowned. It is an excellent organization. In this case, though, they botched the investigation, and that's not opinion. That's supported by the facts. They didn't talk to the immediate next door neighbor for months. They didn't talk to people who heard a gunshot hours earlier. They didn't do sort of that basic investigative technique. They even discovered that Matthew Boynton, the officer, had changed clothes, but then they never asked for his clothes to check for gunshot residue or any of the standard forensic analysis. They just simply failed to do the full investigation up front, and by the time they were sort of guilted into it, it was really too late to do that full investigation over again. And so as a result, what we're left with is simply more questions than answers. Could the FBI come in? That's a good question. Because it's a law enforcement officer, there is a possibility. There's a civil rights angle perhaps, but because this all happened within the state of Georgia, it's unlikely the feds would get involved.
Wow, what an interesting story. We just all want some closure. Well, thank you so much, Brendan. To read more on this case, visit 11alive.com. This story, we want you to know, is also the subject of a new podcast called The Officer's Wife. The first episode is out right now. Brendan, thanks again.